All right, it's 9:45. We're going to call the special meeting of the Commissioners Court for Monday, December the 12th. And meeting's called to order to discuss, take possible action to amend and/or recall and rescind the resolution creating Medina County's participation in the Castroville-Medina County Joint Airport Zoning Board and the Castroville-Medina County Joint Airport Zoning Board. So we got both of them on there just to give you all a brief history, and then we'll have citizens who heard. This was originally a Castroville-Lacrosse Medina County Zoning Board. But yet when we appointed people here recently, we just appointed to a Castroville-Medina County Joint Airport Zoning Board. So first, we have two citizens to be heard. I will go to order the ring, but Darren Bond, first.
Thank you very much. My name is Darren Bond. I am a member of the board in question, the JASB. I'm here to speak as individual. However, I do not speak for the board, but I have been involved in it for over a year, so I do consider myself kind of an expert witness here. And commissioners, during your deliberations, if you have any questions, you have lots of experts in the room, please ask questions and at least give yourself a little bit of an education before you weigh in and vote on this process. And in full disclosure, the judge and I have known each other for almost 20 years now. I consider him a friend. I still consider him a friend, even though we have some disagreements and differences of opinion sometimes. I've been asking you not to pull out of this order of 1990 for a couple reasons. The most important reason is it has the appearance of an attempt to manipulate the deliberations of the board and the outcome of the board. And that's just not ethical. And I'm no lawyer, but I question the legality of it too. But we deserve your support. When I say we, I mean the board, and speaking for myself. And we have worked hard for 12 months to produce a good product under the auspices of Texas Local Municipal Code 241. And it's very directive about what our goal is and what we should do. We've done our best to listen to everybody. We have consulted with consultants from the city, from TxDOT, legal consultants. We've met with landowners, affected people, airport users, and that sort of stuff. We've done our best to collectively take in all interests to produce a decent product. Please don't get yourself focused on some single special interest, regardless of the power, regardless of the amount of money. And I'll finish this, and again, I'll be available for questions. But another thing, I've been doing community service for 20 years in Castroville-Medina County. I've never felt so threatened as I have now. And I'll put that on leadership, both here and with the city of Castroville. The tone has been ratcheted up to the point where I've been threatened with lawsuits, threatened, with all sorts of things, including individual action. And that's just not right. The tone should never have been allowed to get to this point. We deserve security, we deserve support, and we deserve a safe environment to deliberate, to produce a product that's a good product for all citizens of Medina County and Castroville. And like I said, commissioners, you do have a lot of experts right here in this room. Please ask questions and be informed before you make any decision today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darren. Next, we have the former mayor of Castroville, Bob Lee. Mayor? Former.
Yeah.
But you're still the mayor.
If I might put my comments in perspective, been in Castroville since '99. Shortly after arriving there, I joined the Airport Advisory Board because I'm an aviator. And subsequent to that, I was head of P&Z, head of zoning board of adjustment, was the mayor for 8 years, and continued after that lovely stint as doing more volunteer work. So when I make my comments, I'm fully aware of the needs of the city, those people who live there, of zoning issues, of things that have to go to the zoning board of adjustment if there's got to be some appeal made, which is part of the process that's set out in this particular document of the state, which is really a national document. Each state puts their own in effect. So what they're dealing with really is done at a national level, and it flows downhill from there. A couple of things I had put together, and one of the reasons that this particular group is required, and this document is required, please excuse me for standing up, I can't stand on those benches, is aviation mishaps and issues with people on the ground that live near airports. And there are some hazards obviously associated with aviation. Over 50% of aviation mishaps happen in takeoff and landing, and actually more happen in landing than takeoff. And so there's obviously a desire there to do the best you can to ensure those areas that are most prone to having mishaps are protected. And that generally does not prohibit things being put there. What it does is it says you need to be aware of what the potential threat is here, and whatever you do, take that into consideration. If in fact there is a particular area that you should not or cannot have anything, then generally it's up to the airport or the city to purchase that land, so it doesn't happen. Fortunately, Castroville's done very well because Texas Aviation has given our airport over $10 million in the last 20 years, the biggest grant provider to the city of anyone. Anyway, about 15 years ago, I came to Judge Barton because I had read this document, and I said, you guys need to we need to put this board together. And I came subsequent to Judge Barton's time in my capacity as mayor and otherwise, and said, we need to get this board together because development is going to come to Castroville. Well, it's Castroville, it's not Hondo, it's your airport, we'll defer to whatever you want to do. Well, that doesn't work. Well, now we have development. I understand about a year and a half ago, or a year ago, the city of Castroville and you gentlemen, I'm sorry I didn't initially say good morning, Judge and commissioners, decided to put this board together, and which is required by the state. And it's going along trying to get to do its duty. One of the people that you selected, of the two you selected, is Mr. Bond. And you know Mr. Bond's history, Air Force pilot, Southwest Airline captain for many years. He understands big airports, small airports, safety issues. I think deals with this from an aviation perspective, trying to make sure that people on the ground are safe as are the people that are flying through the air. Anyway, I've got off my notes, so I just won't use enough of that. I have
That's okay, you know the rule is 3 minutes, so we're going to count it. Yeah, so just.
Let me just put it to you this way. It would be a black eye to us if this board was disestablished. Okay, it would be a black eye to us. And it would be very difficult to get other people to serve on a board that's been disestablished, because I've been through this when I had to get like 70 people to serve on boards. It needs to be honored and finished. I don't see a rush in getting this thing done whatsoever. I don't think there's a threat to the people that live around the airport as far as the use of their land. Most of the issues through the safety and noise are going to actually be contained within the airport property. There may be some very small areas off of that. Obviously, the corridor coming in and out of the airport, you just need to be mindful of what's put there. And if there are sound issues, then those people need to be made aware that they need to be dealt with or they may get complaints. But the people that are building on the ground are the ones that are at the greater threat of having someone come to them and say, hey, you knew there was a problem, how can you do something about it? And that was identified to you. And so all that goes into this mix to try to find a good answer. So I hope a Christmas present to us all is you guys will find a solution that can get this thing finished in good order, and we'll all be happy with the outcome. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Mayor. Have a good Christmas. So let me just give you all a little bit more history here. In 1990, this court, under Judge Campsey, approved an order creating the Castroville-Lacoste, Medina County Joint Airport Zoning Board. Everybody appointed members, and apparently it fell apart because of the reason it's falling apart today. Landowners are being affected by it. Landowners are getting regulations put on it, so I think the board just didn't do anything if I know the history of what I've been told. And like Mayor Lee said, somewhat later he came in, they tried to do it again, and now a year ago, Chuck came in and visited with me and said we need to do it because of the FAA, and Jim with the FAA is sitting right there in the back.
When they say we need to do this, we need to do it, what is it?
We need to put 2 members on the board, reconstitute that board, and then have them go out and create the needed zoning regulations around the airport to meet what the FAA requires.
So the FAA requirements are not enough, they need something from us?
Well, and that's one of the issues. The FAA says we need to create these requirements. Jim, what's your last name?
Howard, and I'm with TxDOT, not the airport.
I'm sorry, well, okay, let's just say he's with TxDOT, but you're the FAA contact, right?
Well, we're the liaison, yes.
You're the liaison to FAA, so he is with TxDOT. So we went out and appointed originally Darren Bond and Mike Arnold. And
That's correct.
Ma'am, I'll let you talk in a second, but you didn't sign up. But
On the list?
I don't see it.
I think we can leave it. Let me go check.
All right, you sign up on one of these?
There's a sign-in list at the door?
No, this is
That was a sign-in sheet at the door.
that's a sign-in sheet. This
I
is,
understood the
did
comment.
you want to sign up to talk?
Please.
Then please go ahead, and you can talk now then.
Okay, thanks, sir.
And identify yourself, please.
Sure. My name is Dr. Kathy.
Say it again?
Dr. Kathy Ewalt.
Okay,
I am a tenant at the airport.
okay,
I'm not a pilot. My husband is a recreational pilot, but I am an aviation enthusiast. The Joint Airport Zoning Board was resurrected in the fall of 2021 to comply with Texas Local Government Code Title VII, Chapter 241, Municipal and County Zoning Authority around airports, also known as the Airport Zoning Act of 1987, along with multiple FAA grant assurances. The board has held no less than 17 meetings in which they have diligently consulted with FAA representatives, aspirational airports, local citizens, legal counsel, the city of Castroville, airport tenants, and numerous others to develop the required land compatibility and hazard regulations. Our community has an opportunity for thoughtful and considerate planning as the area around the Castroville Airport before some unintentional consequences of urban sprawl reach this area. It appears that the board's most recent 2 meetings have been sabotaged by local leadership. The first time, it appears the city of Castroville was negotiating with the developer, so getting the board to postpone their November meeting. The city would not have to comply with the board's land compatibility regulations should they have been passed back then. The second time, it appears the board has been sabotaged so that it could not hold its meeting on Thursday, possibly to act in such a way, the second time it appears that the board was sabotaged so that this board could hold this meeting to possibly act in such a way that could render the Joint Airport Zoning Board incapacitated. It is suspicious that the Joint Airport Zoning Board has held 17 previous meetings using the exact same open meetings posting processes. However, the posting for the meeting scheduled this past Thursday failed to appear appropriately in Medina County. Therefore, that meeting was not able to be held due to the open meetings requirements, and the meeting has been postponed. Subsequently, the board, with the guidance of the assistance of Castroville leadership, posted notices for the JAZB meeting, which will be held, or is scheduled to be held tonight at 6:00 p.m. In the few hours between the postponement of their meeting on Thursday and Friday morning at 9:45, this board called this meeting, and the results of which have the potential to undercut the Joint Airport Zoning Board. I would like to see the Joint Board continue with its work for safe and meaningful usage of the land surrounding the Castroville Airport. Regardless of how you vote today, Medina County may still be responsible to comply with Title VII, Chapter 241 and the FAA's grant assurances. I quote, "The FAA does not consider a sponsor's lack of direct authority as a reason for the sponsor to decline to take any action at all to achieve land use compatibility outside of the airport boundaries." FAA 2009. More importantly, should the worst possible scenario happen in the future, where a plane would crash into what is now farmland, but becomes densely populated due to lack of regulation, I would feel horrible that I didn't do everything in my power to prevent that from happening. Thank you.
thank you. Did you say Dr. Ewald?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, then let me move onward and say that we created it in 1990. We reconstituted it last year. We appointed 2 more members. They have been meeting. I thank you for all the meetings y'all have been having. They have worked hard on this, and they worked on it without a budget. They didn't have the money to go out. They posted notice in newspapers. Landowners around there didn't know about it. About 2 months ago, I went to a Castroville City Council meeting when the first draft came out, and my comments to them are the same comments that I have today. And those comments are, you need to be as least restrictive on your landowners as possible. Darren Bond, at least 6 months ago, Darren Schroeder, sorry, we got Schroeder and Bond here.
It happens often, sir.
Darren Schroeder, the mayor of Castroville, about at least 6 months ago, I've read emails that communicating with him, and apparently he's been going to their meetings, saying the same thing. We've got to be as least restrictive on these landowners as possible. Commissioner Sitter went to the next meeting we had, and we both spoke, and I think we both said the same thing. You've got to be as least restrictive on these landowners as possible on these regulations. And I've always asked, and I've asked Jim, give us the minimum that the FAA would require, and let's pass those. Okay, that way it's on the FAA, not on us, and not on this board. In my opinion, those requests that we've made have fallen on deaf ears. 3 weeks ago, we had a commission court meeting right here where most of the board was here. Y'all were all here. Y'all all know what we talked about. And we asked to be able to get the landowners involved in this. And I felt like when we walked out of that meeting, we had an agreement, there was no rush to do this, that we could get it done until January 31st. And I think every one of you sitting here heard us say that. Last Thursday, to answer your question, Dr. Ewald, the meeting that was held last Thursday with the landowners was a result of an email that was sent out by the city of Castroville, which the county did pay for it. The meeting was improperly posted because we did not get the notice. She did not get the notice for the meeting until 6:15 on Monday night. The law says you have 72 hours to post a meeting. Therefore, we would have had to post it by 5 o'clock on Monday night for it to be properly posted. So our legal attorney, who works in the DA's office, who is an open records, open meetings, our person for that, instructed everybody that this meeting was not properly posted. Therefore, it should not be held. To my dismay, 2 days later, somebody on that board, ignoring what our district attorney has to say, sends out a letter to all the board members, forget about that, we're gonna have a meeting anyway. Why would you want to go against the one area that's gonna prosecute you? The district attorney is gonna prosecute you, and they're even giving you an opinion, but yet this board says, we're gonna have a meeting anyway. I was pretty shocked at that, and they didn't have the meeting, thank God. I think Mr. Bond was the only one that was there. And so Darren Schroeder and I decided to chair the meeting to hear the landowners, and none of y'all were there, but it was standing room only out the door. Landowners were pretty much up in arms. There were several times I played sergeant at arms. Darren Schroeder ran the meeting and did a great job of doing that, but there was a lot of harsh words sometimes. I was shocked then when they told me that they were going to go ahead and have a meeting on Monday night to pass a draft. I told Scott Dixon, we need to get the landowners involved. I told Mr. Bond that we need to not have that meeting. We need to get the landowners involved. And I said we had an agreement, and Mr. Bond informed me we did not have an agreement because it takes 2 people to make an agreement. And I'm pretty certain when they walked out of that meeting 3 weeks ago that we were going to have we had an agreement, but I was told by Mr. Bond we did not. So that board, I also been told by 2 of the members that are the newest members, have had 0 input. on that board. It's not a 5-member board, it's a 3-member board. And they've had 0 input. And we also have the issue with Lacoste. This was a Castroville, Lacoste, Medina County board. And Lacoste has no say. Lacoste wanted to join in. I responded by email, I'm welcome Lacoste. So they're gonna have a meeting tonight, still not inviting Lacoste, leaving Lacoste out. And one of their board members sent an email out that said, I can't be there, can we not have a meeting till Thursday? Okay? So the only action I have, if I think I have a rogue runaway board, is to do what we're doing today. That's not to say, and I've talked with Keith in great detail about it, he's gonna be in this seat in 20 days. And he and I have discussed it because he's gonna inherit this. I agree that we need to have policy to keep Castroville, Medina County, and Lacoste on that board, that we need to have that airport. I like the airport. I think we need to have the airport. I want the tech stop to be happy. But the direction that's going right now, I don't like it. And thus, we have this sitting here, and just also to answer your Alsatian Village suspicions. Alsatian Village has been talked about and discussed for no less than 2 years. It's not a surprise that Alsatian Village was being built at the end of the runway. It was coming, so there's no suspicions about, and I was told it was also suspicious that we're gonna all of a sudden pass the other crossing, Hugo's. There's no secrets about that. Those landowners are gonna be developed. And so there's nothing suspicious about it. It was in place, it was moving forward. And then I guess I'm shocked when I'm sitting there in a meeting saying, wait a second, how are you gonna deal with Alsatian Village? And the answer to me was, oh, they're grandfathered. I'm thinking, there's not a building built on Alsatian Village. How do you grandfather something that's not even built yet? And then Hugo's gonna get grandfathered because he gets his master development plan up. And maybe you don't know this, I am a lawyer, and I've done a lot of condemnation work for landowners, so I understand the process. And so I don't understand, and then the city of Lacoste was telling, well, y'all didn't even on the board, we'll just carve y'all out. Well, whose authority gives you to carve somebody out? How do you carve out a subdivision that's not even built yet? So my concern is we're making all these policies and rules so we can get something passed, and I'm afraid that down the line it's gonna be a bigger problem than before. So I talked to Jim Allison. Chapter 241 is one of the poorest written statutes. It was written in 1987, and I talked to Jim Allison, and Jim had said that, Darren, I'll get with you in a second, okay, you don't have to raise your hand. Jim had told me that FAA is now coming down on airports in the state, am I correct?
They are putting some attention on land use around airports. Yes.
Jim Allison is the legal counsel for the Texas Association of County, y'all all know it, county that they don't. He has not heard from one county in the state where the FAA is coming down on their airports, and you told me how many airports are there in the state? 200?
182 in our program, other 89 state airports.
So, and Jim, I'm not saying this is a dead issue, I'm just saying the issue needs to be resolved with Lacoste, it needs to be resolved with landowners, and I just don't like the direction that we're taking it right now. And that's why my solution is to get out, because nobody seems to care that Medina County will be sued if these policies are passed and these landowners are affected and their land values are diminished, and they're not going to come after the board. They may sue the board members individually, but hey, Medina County is the target here. And I certainly do not want him to inherit a mistake that I made and dealt with. So that's my issue. And Darren, you got a few minutes, but it's really not a debate here, just so you know.
I understand.
But you're welcome to talk.
I appreciate your generosity. I wouldn't have any comments beyond what my earlier comments were, but you did address me directly, so thank you for the opportunity to respond to that. As far as the city of Lacoste goes, the historical account is is accurate. Lacoste said that they didn't want to be a part of it, and they were carved out. We did have a Lacoste, I believe it was a city council member, attend one of our meetings early on. We brought that up, and he said, that's correct, Lacoste doesn't want to be a part of it. Not only did they not want to put a member on the board, they asked to be carved out of any zoning, so we didn't have an issue with that. So that's how we've been operating. There's no intent to push out Lacoste. In fact, I think the intent now is to add board members that weren't, part of the process earlier on, and that's just not right. On our agreement, we were here in the meeting, and I had a great discussion. I agree with you that we would postpone our meeting or two, whatever it took, in order to have time to communicate with landowners. Eric Cherry, the chairman, also agreed with that. You said 31st of January, and that's the part that we didn't agree to. That seemed too long to me. The important thing was we had an opportunity to address the concerned landowners. And as you know, we had an appointment set up for that. I was going to attend, Eric Cherry was going to attend, and then we had landowners. I believe, and I can't speak for him, but I believe the reason Eric Cherry didn't go is because it appeared that it was being set up as an ambush. There were realtors going to attend, lawyers going to attend, not just those big landowners, Gutierrez and Guerra, I think those were two, but others were going to attend. That's why Mr. Cherry, what he told me, declined to go. Judge, I don't know if you know this or not, I still volunteered to attend that meeting. I want to hear from those people. I've been open to everybody. I was told not to come. I was told not to come by the person who organized that meeting. So I tried, okay? There was another effort, and I applaud you for that effort. Lots of landowners were there last week. As you know, I posted my email address if you have concerns. I don't know if you saw me, Judge, but I shook hands with everybody in that room, and I tried to address them personally. So I want, and believe it or not, a lot of their concerns were solved right there on that night just by some conversation. But I want to back up a little bit, Judge. 241 doesn't say satisfy all landowners. It is very specific. It says airport safety, safety in the air, safety on the ground, viability of the airport, and compatible use. That has been the charge of the board. And all I'm hearing you really show concern for is landowners. Well, there's airport users, there's pilots, there's a city that deserves a vibrant, successful airport. We have been attentive to landowners, but they're not the only focus that we've had. There are lots of other people that will be affected by this, both short-term and long-term. And you heard from some of those, but the city, the airport's viability, airport users, future commercial users, and the people around the airport deserve some common sense regulations. But Judge, we have been attentive, I'm speaking for myself again, and I have been open as I possibly can to everyone with an interest, not just landowners. Something has changed though. In the last few months, there has been this fervent, and Judge, I have heard over and over the term $10 million. I've heard you're going to lose deals with developers. The realtor's going to lose his commission. That shouldn't be the focus of our board. Our board has a direction from Texas Municipal 241 that's pretty clear, and it shouldn't be clouded by what's about to happen or going to happen. And I've been threatened lawsuits over and over again. I've done that before. I know. I had a very good, I think you may have known Susan Rocha, an attorney for the city some years ago. She told me, and she passed away too early, but she told me, she said, Darren, you do the right thing for the right reasons and everything's going to work out. And Judge, that's where I stand. And you know my heart. We've been friends forever. So we might disagree on something, but you know my intent here. And
I understand. And unfortunately, we don't agree on this right now. And that's why we're sitting here.
I understand.
Because in that Tuesday meeting that you addressed, let me just give this board a little history on what happened on that Tuesday meeting. The city of Castroville posted it for 6 o'clock, so the board could attend. And I get a phone call by Ms. Wharton saying that Mr. Cherry moved it to 3 o'clock, which means the board can't come because it's posted for 6. And then he chose that Mr. Bond was going to attend with him, and he also made the statement that no attorneys, no realtors could attend with the landowners. No, you're through.
It wasn't my statement. No,
that was Eric Cherry's, okay, the chair. And he makes a statement they can't come. I call Eric Cherry and said, where did you get the authority to say who can attend and who can't attend a meeting? And change it to 3 so we can't have the whole board there, which is what I think the whole board should be operating here, not just 1 or 2. And so Eric Cherry decided to cancel that meeting, rightfully so, because, you know, he's dictating what can happen and what can't happen. And I'm sorry, that's not how that board's supposed to operate. There's 5 members on that board, and to answer the city of LaCoste sent a letter about a month ago stating they would like to be in. So I don't know who your council member was that was at that meeting, but the mayor, through his city administrator, sent a letter wanting to be a part of the board, which that letter, except for me, responded saying, I think they should be, because it is in their ETJ. It affects their ETJ. And I said, I think they should come in, and otherwise that letter fell on deaf ears. Your board decided to keep moving, no LaCoste, let's keep moving, let's keep going. Last Thursday night, when I asked y'all not to have a meeting tonight, boy, I get a posting. It comes in at 4:54 on Friday, so it didn't get posted. I mean, Friday afternoons are pretty late time to send people things, so it wasn't posted again for tonight. No, Darren, we're not going to debate this anymore, okay? I'm sorry. But I'm just telling y'all, this is my problem. This is where it's been going. And so tonight you're sitting there, you're going to have a meeting against my request, which is probably about the 3rd time y'all done something against my request. And it's like Medina County has no say in this. But we have the liability in it. So what is our option here? There's not many in my opinion. So I'll open it up to you guys. Go ahead.
If the point of contention is some sort of rules and regulations surrounding airport use in outlying areas, I think that the FAA has rules in place that supersede anything that we or the board or whatever could come up with. And we have subdivision rules and regulations. And in my opinion, that's enough. I don't even know why we're involved anyway. And I think the point of contention is not really aired out here. And I don't know what it is, and don't care. I don't see where we are effective in being a part of this board. And as far as I'm concerned, we can get out of it. It bothers me a bit.
And I'll answer that to say, we have no control over the airport. But the law says that the county has to be a part of it because we actually control the land around, that is not city land. That's why we have to be in it. The issue I have is the methodologies that are being taken right now. And the rate that it's like it's a rush. We got to go in and get something passed. And these landowners deserve to have, they voiced their opinion on Thursday night. And we're having a meeting today. They're having a meeting today that's going to pass a draft. I'm like, the landowners just voiced their opinions. And there was, by the way, 5 lawyers in the room. 5 lawyers for landowners in the room. And we have a 6th one standing right there who wasn't there, but her clients were. Am I correct? I think that's correct. So you know, if you don't think there's a threat of lawsuit, and you don't think that there's people concerned, and their concerns are not being addressed as we sit here today, you know, I'm not going to put Ms. Gruber on the spot, but I'm just going to tell you that that is probably the case, and that's what bothered me, Mr.
Yeah. In a quick summary, in layman's terms, somebody explain to me what are the negative ramifications to the airport of passing the minimum required regulations that would be appealing or satisfactory to the landowners around there?
Jim, would you mind addressing that?
So what was the question? What's the ramifications of?
What's negative about passing the minimum standard of regulations that the county's been requesting?
Well, I mean, that's permissible. Yeah, that's, I mean.
What's negative to the airport about that? Why hasn't that happened if that's permissible?
Then there are nuances specific to Castroville Airport that ultimately, you know, as the former mayor, and I think he left, said that we're talking about property rights and paying back grants and all these other things, but when it comes down to it, it's about preservation of life. You know, that there are unique considerations surrounding every single airport, the 20,000 of them in the United States, that each one has its own needs in terms of protecting pilots in the air and people on the ground. So that's, you know, that's where going beyond the bare minimum comes into play. It's one of the unique aspects for the city of Castroville's airport.
There's nothing that's a positive result to the airport or people that utilize the airport or pilots or anything else where they would benefit from increasing those regulations?
Are you asking if there's a benefit to pilots or people on the ground if
Yeah.
you get the regulations?
Not people that live in a subdivision, but people that are active in the airport.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more protection. It provides a safer environment. And then for people on the ground, the same thing. It provides a safer environment. We talked about it. You know, there have been multiple takeoffs that have resulted in aircraft crashing off airport property. And those probably happen beyond the minimum. You know, I'm pretty safe to say that it happens beyond the minimum. But imagine if there was a house there. Imagine if there was a school there. Imagine if there was something else with a congregation of our families, of our friends, of our residents, of our voters. That's what going beyond the minimum does, is there's unique considerations to every airport. And Castroville has theirs, Huntsville has theirs, every airport in the state, every airport in the country. So that's the benefit, increased protection of our friends, our families, our voters, our residents. So,
Well, I'm gonna go back to the FAA regulations. They've got an airport in San Antonio, right? And they will probably have some sort of FAA regulations in place that affect the property owners, landowners, business owners that are in the right of ways or flyways or whatever you want to call it. I don't know why or how we could improve on those. I don't see the.
Well, let's see, Miss Rath is here, and her office used to be on the 6th or 7th floor of the Tesoro building. And many times I've sat in her office and watched the belly of probably Mr. Bond's plane taking off over the top of her building, and I've often wondered, how did that happen? All right, and why hasn't that not been shut down? Am I correct? And how many times a day did you watch the belly of an airplane go over the top of your office? When I first addressed this group the first time, I brought that up. How does San Antonio Airport get away with it? And we're trying to overregulate a little Castroville Airport that has nothing, nowhere near the traffic of San Antonio. So, you guys? Anybody?
Well, I'm just, let's say y'all contact the landowners. I got a call Thursday from a guy that's in your Zone C. Just found out about the meeting on Thursday night. Never heard of it. And he has thousands of acres in that area. You know, so I don't think every landowner was notified about what's going on. I think
If
we rushed.
I don't mean to cut you off here, but if I'm gonna buy a piece of property and build something in the runway, I'm gonna probably think twice about buying it and building it. That'd be another place I could do it.
Yeah.
That's just common sense, and there's none of that going around the other.
Is that where you're leaving?
Sir?
Is that where you're leaving?
That's the way. Yeah.
Mr. Sear, this is your precinct already. Do you have any comments to make?
Yeah, I do got some comments to make. I got at least 5 or 6 or 8. Me and my wife both got letters in the mail when I came back from a hunting trip this weekend. Had a pile of them there. Neighbors north of me, I thought they were out of it, got the letter in the mail. I got every neighbor upset. It's just goes back down to Texas property rights, which is probably some of the strongest property rights we have in the nation today. My first look at anything, Mr. Freeton, came to my office 5 Mondays ago today, after I had a root canal. And that was my first look at what had been going on that y'all have been doing in over a year. And my first deal is, yes, we need an airport. Definitely we need an airport. I'm 100% with all the bad news came through all the years, everybody been fighting the airport. I'm for the airport. I am a private rights landowner also. Like Jerry Beck said, anything you put in place, I could live with some of the stuff y'all got if I was in B, or if I could have negotiated, if I was in the A part. But I can't talk for my landowner. I'm not their attorney, and I told them that. I cannot. I said, hire you attorney, and a good one. So you sue me if I pass this thing. All this has been going on, and at the bottom, we keep talking about restrictive rights all the way down to the bare minimum. Just to please Aviation, I think would be fine. But this time, we are so far apart. I feel there's no coming together until we get a lot more information from Aviation, from whoever's going to be on this board. I'm not going to let this thing even get a chance to get passed to another level. So I am ready to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I feel this board is too broad and overreaching into personal property rights, with no affected landowners with a word to say. There's one right there, several of them in here. Texas Aviation put this in place in 1987. What is their remedy for compensation? Is there any
For
compensation, these landowners?
For the decrease in use?
Exactly, to restrict their land on use. That's going to be one of my questions to the landowner for monetary damages. At this time, I make a motion to rescind the county's activities and appointed board members effective immediately until the court and landowners get some answers.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. 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 Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And with that, we're going to stand. I did. That, I'm still under 10.
Under 10.
I'm still under 10.
One meeting to go.
One meeting to go. So with that, we're going to stand adjourned. Thank y'all.